Hey everybody. I'm telling you ahead of time, I'm probably going to start crying. I am doing a very special unboxing. This is the first time I've ever done an unboxing with someone else while on Zoom. A lot of you know a young son of mine and scholar, Scott Erickson. When it comes to historians, there are not a whole lot like him. And Scott has sent me a package. Now, I understand that everything in this box is properly labeled, but I want to see if I can show you the size of this box. It's huge. So I have slit the top so that I'm not making an absolute mess. And now it's time to find out what's in here. And it has been all the willpower that I didn't think I had to wait until I had Scott on Zoom. All right, Mr. Erickson, you are in charge of this.
Well, thank you, Vi. I'm glad to be here. My name is Scott Erickson, and I'm one of the founding members of the Bay State Marauders. I'm also the historian. Also been part of a lot of other groups, clubs, and organizations. I was heavily involved with the New England Leather Alliance, and I just kind of want to say a little bit about that. As of December 31st, NELA has ceased operations, and it's very sad. It was an organization that was an educational activist and outreach organization in the New England area. And after 30 years, it's come to an end, and I'm very sad to hear about that. But tonight, we are going to open a little gift boxing. For those of you who do not know, the Boston Eagle has recently closed. And the Boston Eagle was the home bar of Vikings MC. It was also the home bar of the Bay State Marauders, which is my leather club. And so we're going to talk a little bit right now about the beginnings of Vikings. Vikings started in February of 1969. There was a motorcycle club from New York City that came up and did a bar crawl called Cycle MC. They did it at the place called The Shed, which was on Huntington Avenue, which is over by Symphony Hall in Boston. And that date was February 22nd, 1969. And it gave the guys who were the local guys to turn around and say, hey, you know, we could start our own leather club. And so that became their founding date. And on March 1st, 1969, they did their first meeting, which was at a house or basement apartment in the South End on, what street was that? I can't remember. Anyway, so that they started on March 1st, and they were active for 25 years. They ended somewhere around 1995. And that's Vikings MC right here. The Boston Eagle opened in 1976 at 88 Queensbury Street in the Fenway. That was there for a couple of years and closed in the early fall of 1979 and moved over to 520 Tremont Street, where they stayed for the next 40 years. When COVID hit, they closed their doors in March of 2020. And everything that was on the walls came off the walls in August of 2021. Now, Vikings moved their home bar from 119 Merrimack over to the Eagle in April of 1991, and all of the banners that they had were on the walls. Interestingly enough, there was a former president of Vikings that actually lived above the bar, and he was returned all the banners, including more things from the band than just the banners, everything that wasn't even part of the Vikings trophy collection. And so he went out to the AMCC website, which is Atlantic Motorcycle Coordinating Council, got info@baystatemarauders.org, contacted that. You're going to get me if you email info@baystatemarauders.org. So I responded to him, went over to his apartment. He gave me all of the banners. We went through everything that was there. And then he turned around and said, turn around and look in that cardboard box behind you. And I did. And it was a very large stack of paper, of meeting minutes, correspondence, newsletters, membership lists, governing documents, patches, pins, lanyards, plaque awards. It was almost 2 full sets of meeting minutes. The meeting minutes were from 1969 to 1975, from 1983 to 1995. The newsletters were from 69 to 75. And it was just a treasure trove. And I just couldn't believe that this is what was going to, which was here. So with that, you may open up package number 1, because they're all numbered. That's number 2. It's the big one. That's all wrapped, all wrapped in bubble wrap. There's 3 packages all wrapped together. That's the one.
I want to make sure everyone else can see.
As you can see, there's one that's marked number 1.
This moved.
So you're gonna turn it around and cut the foam core off the front. I did that so that it wouldn't break. You're not hearing anything clinking or clanking, I hope.
Not a thing.
Good.
Okay.
That means it's come all in one piece.
Be sure that everybody can see this as we very carefully. Trying so hard to be neat, Belle. Almighty. All right, we have a cracked glass. I don't really care.
Oh, crap. So
It's not a broken glass. It's a cracked glass. And I can live with the cracks. Look at me.
I was kind of hoping it would
Jesus.
come in all one piece, but apparently it didn't. I used to work as a professional picture framer in the late 80s and early 90s. So this is a full member patch for Vikings MC, an associate patch for Vikings MC, and an AMCC patch because they were one of the founding members of AMCC. On the left-hand side, going down one side, are all of the anniversary pins for Vikings MC. And going down the right-hand side is all of the Leif Erikson event going down the right. The Leif Erikson event was their weekend-long event that they did over Labor Day. Now, to talk a little bit about what is in the lettering here, the first section is just what I had talked about before, which was the beginnings of Vikings MC. The second one is things like who designed the patch was George Superintendent. One of the things that they had also was that each president would choose a Viking's name. That was one of their traditions that they had.
Wow. That's fabulous.
Yeah, so if you became president, you got a Viking name. And it also talks about how, and this is where Entre Nous comes in. Entre Nous started in September of 1970. There was a split in the club that 6 members took off and they formed their own organization. And this is how Entre Nous started, which means just between us in French. So this is why Entre Nous is here, because the two of them were really like sister organizations in a lot of ways. They kind of mirrored one another. And back in 2013, I was able to get all of their meeting minutes and correspondence and governing documents and newsletters. And it was like between the two of them, it's like reading a diary of the Boston community, the New England community, and from Maine to Virginia to Canada, of everything that took place there as well.
Stunning.
Yeah. They were also one of the founding members of AMCC, which is the bottom one. The third paragraph actually talks about the anniversary event. It also talks about the Leif Erikson event. The Leif Erikson event, they did a tour around Boston Harbor on Friday night, and that was a tradition that they would do. The BO2 event, if you move that over just slightly, keep going over, if you look, you will see that just down slightly, down. Turn it down, see the black, okay, so the top black one, you'll see it says BO2 2271. So that is what the event was called, their anniversary event. It was sometimes just commonly known as the BO2 event. The BO2 stands for February 22nd, 1969, and every year they would change it. So the top one is the black one, that's from their 1971 anniversary. And it was also made to look like a Boston Exchange phone number. So that's that kind of funny. And then for the Leif Erikson, they would do this every single year as well, but this happened on Labor Day weekend. So some fun facts. The anniversary of
Scott, don't leave me, you're breaking up. There he is. Welcome back.
I don't know what happened, but I lost it for a second. So anyway, so with the BO2 event, that is when they started, which was February 22nd. It was a Saturday. And on February 22nd, 2003, in the back room of the Ramrod, one of the other founding members of the Bay State Marauders asked me if I wanted to start a leather club. And then 2 weeks later, on March 1st, 2003 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon was the first meeting of the Bay State Marauders. The first meeting of Vikings MC was March 1st, 1969 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. What are Vikings? But Marauders.
That's for sure.
And here's another funny. I was born 4 days after the founding of Vikings MC.
You were destined.
And it's also not lost on me the irony That an Erickson is the one that saves all of their history.
That had already crossed my mind.
So one of the funny things about Entre Nous and Vikings and having both sides of their meeting minutes and newsletters, it's almost as if it's like you're getting two sides of a conversation. And sometimes you don't get the information from one, but you get a little bit more from the other. So having known that there was this argument that had happened within Vikings, I was always curious as to what it was. You know, what was this big, huge blowout that had done? And Vikings really didn't say anything, and neither did Entre Nous. So when I went through all of these, I wanted to go to the August of 1970 to find out what exactly was there, and it really didn't say anything. It just said that there was a member that was being they were revoking his membership due to conduct unbecoming. Apparently there was two people that were running for president, and the one that didn't get president quit the club, and that's when they started Entre Nous. But what the argument is, I have absolutely no idea. Odd.
Probably not that serious.
Well, it was serious enough that they quit. So there has to have been something. But the funny thing is that when it comes to things that were in Vikings, again, having read the Entre Nous meeting minutes in, I believe it was 1972, one of the members of Vikings had been murdered.
Whoa.
Exactly. And so they listed his name and where he was from, and I was actually able to find online an article that had happened, and apparently he was at a rest area, and this guy showed up with a baseball bat and bludgeoned him to death. And he actually ended up not going to jail. He ended up being convicted to a mental institution. And I was just kind of like, well, what did Vikings have to say about it? Not one word. Nothing. In one of their newsletters, they dedicate the newsletter to him. But as far as what happened to him, they don't mention anything. And if it wasn't for Entre Nous, I would have known nothing about any of this, which was really interesting. Another interesting part of this as well is that when you read this, if I read a little bit of Vikings meeting minutes, and I read about, they were the boat trip that they would take around Boston Harbor. They contacted one of the harbor cruise people, and they said that it was a stag party. They didn't say it was gay men. They said it was a stag party, saying that this was some straight guy getting married. Consider that this is still the early 70s, and you really can't always necessarily be really completely and totally out. So they lied to them about what it was in order to make it a little bit more palatable, but the company wouldn't have them because they figured this stag party would be too wild, so they didn't want them either. So even a lie didn't even work for them as well. So so that was kind of funny. So with that, you're going to actually open up the tube, which is number 2.
Just very gently. It's nested. By my desk, number 2. Really.
These are 2 banners from the Vikings MC collection.
Oh, God.
One is from Trident's MC International, and the other one is from ASMAC, which is American Men's Social Club. That is made out of felt, and consider that that felt could be nearly 50 years old.
And I already know where they're going to be hung.
Oh, you're going to open up number 3 because there's something to go along with them.
And of course, I have a very special place in my heart for Trident. More years ago now than I can almost remember, Trident honored Jill and me for the work that we were, oh my God.
So American Social Men's Club started in 1975. They were so commonly known as ASMAC that people didn't know what the acronym represented. Others gave the nickname Armenian Sewing Mending Club.
Lord.
This was one of 3 banners that are identical. The first one was part of Entre News banner collection that was over at the Alley, and before it was at the Alley, it was at 119 Merrimack. The Alley actually had 2 of them. One went to the History Project in Boston, and the other one went to the Leather Archive and Museum. And so you are getting the 3rd one, which is part of this collection. If you want to, let me talk a little bit about banners, and so that people kind of understand what this means. So when a club had a run, Vikings had Leif Erikson that happened on Labor Day weekend. At the end of the run, the visiting club that was the most participant, the one that really came in, really gave their all, participated in all the games, maybe hosted a cocktail party. At the end of the weekend, if you got the main or the big award for the weekend, it would be the host club's banner. And then you would go back and you would put it at your club, your main club bar. And that's how all of these wound up on the walls of the Eagle. Now, Trident's was founded in February of 1973 in Montreal, Canada.
Really?
Yep. And it had many, many chapters all over North America. There were 3 chapters in New England, one in Rhode Island, one in New Hampshire, and one in Boston. So the one that was at the Eagle, at the Alley, that was part of Entre News collection, was actually the New Hampshire chapter. We believe, having talked to Joe, who was the past president of Vikings, believe that this was the Boston chapter that this one particular one is from. Can you smell the nastiness of the Eagle?
No. But I smell a million memories.
Cigarette smoke. These were in quite a horrible shape when I got them. They had never been cleaned. They were moldy. They were full of smoke. When I cleaned them, it was as if someone poured a cup of coffee in them. They were that filthy dirty.
Let's just call these a Leslie Anderson worthy challenge.
And the ones that I could not do were the ones that I couldn't clean myself because I was too nervous in ruining them. They were sent to Leslie, and Leslie will take the proper care to do this. So if you want to open up package number 3.
Scott, it's a little hard to explain how much, to some extent, I miss the bars that I grew up in.
Yes.
Missing the Ramrod, New York, even though I did get my nose handed to me there. Or Badlands.
Yeah.
With Allure, Hellfire. And
the Eagle's Nest,
amongst other things, in Columbus.
Yeah.
And it smells a little like beer and smoke.
Yep.
And a little old Phoebings and some leather care and 1,000 men that I loved.
Yeah.
And so I'm I'm having a bit of a moment. Uh, to all of you who are watching the old lady breakdown, there was a scent that was unique to the bars, and it wafted past you. It's not that it hit you. You inhaled and kind of knew you were home. And yes, it was a little cum, but not as much as you would think. It was a combination of cigarettes and mostly, but not exclusively, beer. Occasionally a little bit of scotch, a whole lot of leather, a whole lot of men who were brothers and sons. And it was a scent that said you were home. And oh my God, it's all right here.
When you sit and you think about the rest of the bars that are still around, that still have a banner trophy collection, I don't know which ones do, but I do know that the Bike Stop still has theirs. And shout out
Yes.
to Philadelphians right now, because I believe that that is their trophy collection. And quite honestly, I don't know if there's anybody else, any other bar right now that really has the extensive banner collection that the Bike Stop has. So with that, if you're ever in Philadelphia, make sure that you stop by the Bike Stop and have a drink and salute all of the leather clubs that are still on the wall there.
Go downstairs to the shortstop.
Yep.
Saddle up to the bar, grab a beer, and then slide over to the boot black chair. And even if there isn't a boot black there, climb up into the chair with the beer and take a deep, deep breath.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I don't know when either ASMAC or Trident when those particular clubs disbanded, because very often with these clubs they don't really record when they ended, and so as a result a lot of times it is lost to history. When you're ready, open up package number 3. And hopefully things won't be cracked.
Here on Christmas morning is definitely taking over. Oh, Scott.
This is to hang with the banners. This gives you the history of both clubs. If you look in the center picture, look in the center picture. Bye.
There.
Look in the center picture. You will see, if you look closely, you will see the banner that you have in the picture.
Okay, let's wipe my magnifying glass.
So it's there.
These fine men.
This is a picture that was taken at Chaps that was on Huntington Avenue in Boston, which is right near where the Boston Public Library is. The building is no longer there. It closed in the mid 1990s. When they closed, they painted all of the walls hot pink, so that when they knocked the building down, there was this shocking pink.
Never mind.
So there's a picture of the banner, it being in use. It's maybe one of the three, because there was three that were identical, but there you have a visual of the banner in with its home people.
Scott, this is spectacular.
So this gives a history of the club, the banners, where the banners had come from. It talked about the ones that came from the alley that originally were at 119 and where they went. So, you know, one went to the Leather Archive, one went to the Boston History Project, and one is coming to you. So when you hang it on the wall and someone comes in, it's not just some fabric on the wall. They can actually read the history of both banners. There wasn't, when it came to dividing everything up, unfortunately, I couldn't send you as much as I was able to send to the other two. So this is why I wanted to make things a little extra special for you.
First of all, Scott, I understand priorities. Now, I would keep history home first, because that's always the most important to me. And then to my big brother in Chicago, no problem.
But Joe was the one who asked everything to go to the Leather Archive. And when I sat down with the Leather Archive, there were ones that they already had and didn't need a duplicate. And then I do talks for the History Project. And yeah, I want to be able to teach people in Boston about their history. But the two that you got, they already had one of those. So they didn't need a copy. And that's why you ended up getting them. So,
and I am eternally grateful.
Yeah.
These frames alone, the information is worth its weight.
When you're ready, open package number 4.
Patience. I must be patient. Don't rip through things like I have lost my mind.
Well, this is just brown paper, so it's not gonna harm anyone. You just rip through.
Yeah.
Let's just hope there's no crack.
Holy, I almost said something I shouldn't say on camera.
So that patch is from the Eagle's Nest in New York City. For anybody that's watching, if you have ever been to an eagle, this is the bar that all of those eagles was named after. So on the bottom part of that, where you have the lettering, you have the history of the eagle or the eagle's nest. And on the right, you have a history of the Boston eagle, where this was hanging.
This and a smaller version of this patch was gifted to me just before Jill and I left New York in 83. And I was told to wear it with pride, which I still do.
So this became the Eagle's Nest in 1970 and it closed in 2000.
And a funny story, when I grabbed one of my club brothers, my TULSA brothers, and we were going to go off to a show that was going on in Columbus. And so, of course, where do we find our peeps? So we go off to the Eagle. And when we both got over our initial shock at what the inside of the Eagle looked like, because the flowers all over the place definitely wasn't making it, we kind of slid up to the bartender and went, I'm looking for a leather bar. And he said, oh, you want the Eagle's nest. Okay. So we changed clothes, put on our club vests, and went over to the Eagle's Nest. And bartender behind the bar, beautiful man, serious bear, silver gray, gorgeous, full head of gray hair, beard, and a pelt that all I wanted to do was run my fingers through. And he looked at the Eagle's Nest patch on my vest, and he looked up and he looked down and he looked up and said, young lady, where did you get that? And I said, from the bar. And of course, we played 20 questions with, are you sure you're who you say, are you sure you're another person? And my brother is standing there stunned as we're playing trivia with each other. And I said, and CT from the Spike would probably be here with us, but he had other things to do, which time he shut up and went, yeah, I guess you did earn that patch. So, good God. Oh, New York.
That patch cleaned up very well. It was not in very good shape when I first got it. It was full of stains, very, very yellowed. I've had a gentle cleaning. I took great advice from Leslie Anderson.
And Leslie is the one who would know.
And Leslie is the one that would know, yes.
Memories of my kinkling youth.
Incidentally, all three pictures also have a hook on them so that you don't have to go searching for a hook to hang them up. All you need is a hammer.
Oh, Scott.
And look on the back, there's a little sticker on each of the back.
I saw that. Oh, Scott. Stories of my youth.
One of the things that makes this whole thing very bittersweet to me is that at our bar nights, people could come and I could teach them the history of our community just by walking them around the bar and pointing things out that were on the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. But the other part of it is that the bar really wasn't taking care of the banners and they really needed some serious care. And so that's the sweet part of it, that they're going to get the care that they need.
That is true with not just banners, but also posters.
Yes.
You know, when we hang them in bars, or you're visiting another bar and they give you a poster to bring back to your home bar, and you either, tack it on the wall or maybe a little glue around the edges to stick it to the wall or to the ceiling. It's in the moment. It's being able to look up and remember that moment without thinking about what needs to be done to that poster, to that banner, to that patch, even to those trophies.
Yes.
We just don't think about it when we put them up. I doubt sincerely that even at my home bar or at the Dallas Eagle, which has a wonderful trophy case, anybody is really thinking about, well, once a year they need to be taken out very gently, wiped down.
Yes.
Wipe down the shelf and put it back. To take even something as simple as a lint brush over the banners. We just don't think about it.
I had to kind of brush them down with the a vacuum cleaner first, because they were horribly filthy, horribly filthy. They were moldy. They had mold all over them. You could see it. Even the Marauders banner that was on the wall, we had only been there since 2013. It was full of mold.
Sweat, humidity.
I think it was probably the air conditioning system that he had never changed the filters. And, you know, every time when we came home from the Eagle, we always had a headache. And I didn't drink. And Tom and I would wake up like we had a hangover, and neither one of us really drank.
Mold.
So we had a feeling it was the filthiness of the Eagle. And when I mean this place was known as the Dirty Bird, it was the Dirty Bird. You could smell the bathroom 20 feet away. It was,
Oh, ow, we were real doing well with this conversation until that one.
well, I know, but you know, it was known as the Dirty Bird for a reason.
I get it.
Incidentally, for those who are also watching, if you watch the movie Ted 2, the Eagle is actually in that movie. And Jay Leno comes out of that bathroom because he was supposed to be cruising, what's his name? Matt Damon in the bathroom, so.
Oh my. Shades of my kinkling youth, Scott.
I know you would love these. There's more to open.
Okay. How do I, this is the problem of a 3-year-old. How do I hold on to everything and still open something else? Okay. This goes right here. Six.
Yep. So you probably need number 5.
7. You know this weighs more than you do.
Oh, I don't know. I've put on some pounds since last time you saw me.
7. Where did you go? Okay, I have poster board. I have too many things around me, so I will start moving things. That's a big box.
Yes, it is.
Okay, you stay, you stay. I have 6 and 7. I have 1, 2, 3, 2.
No, it should be it should be very similar to number 6.
I'm having a crisis.
Is it on the floor?
No. I have my banners. I have 3 pictures.
Maybe I mislabeled them. So open.
Let's go to 6 and see. Lord, this weighs a ton.
Maybe I mislabeled them.
And yeah, I've got 6 packages.
Okay, maybe I mislabeled them. I thought there was probably 7. That should be, if it opens up and, okay, so that is number 5, actually. I mislabeled them. So this is a history of everything that was at the Eagle. And a brief history on everything. And you also have it in an electronic form, just in case you want to keep it electronic. And so one is the history that's in the what you're holding right there, there's a smaller one, and the larger CD is actually all of the meeting minutes, all of the newsletters, all of the correspondence, all of the governing documents, everything.
Wow.
So flip through it quickly. You'll also see it has all of the banner collections, picture of all the banners that were at the Eagle.
Robbie is joining us.
Robbie is joining us.
Say hello, Robbie.
Hello, Robbie. So if you just kind of flip through just quickly, you'll see that there is pictures of all of the banners that were at the Eagle and a brief history of all of them.
Oh, good Lord.
So you basically have a running inventory of everything that was at the Eagle.
Has Gwen seen these, Hardy?
Nope. I did not put this out yet until I had mailed everything off, and I wanted to do a unboxing with you before I really sent it off to other people so that they can read this. The Boston Eagle had 2 leather Davids that were on the bar. So there's the history of the leather Davids that are there. You have a copy of all of the posters that were on the wall, but I am still trying to get someone to scan the ones that I have. I have not sent the posters off that were on the wall. The 2 leather Davids actually were kept by the owner. He did not want to let them go.
Yet.
Yeah. Not all the banners made it out of there. There were 5 banners that didn't make it out. 3 of them belong to the Vikings collection. And I have a couple of pictures because I sometimes took pictures of the banners that were on the wall. So you have pictures of when they were hanging at the Eagle in there. 2 of the, so the ones that didn't make it out, one was the Long Island Spuds. One was Rocky Mountain Mountaineers, and that actually had an actual eagle feather on it. And the bar had 2 banners from Druids.
Wow.
Yep. Which was out of DC.
Yeah.
Eventually they moved to Atlanta, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's a rare patch.
Right, and so there was actually 2 of them. So the Leather Archive had one, so they didn't need a second one. So the one that I have is going to the History Project.
Yes.
Had the 3rd one, and even if it does show up, guess who gets it? So who knows whether or not it'll actually show up one day? You know, all of a sudden, you know, Jack may go through things and go, oh, I found 3 more banners. Here you go, Joe. Here's 5 more banners or whatever he finds. The other 2 banners that didn't make it out, one was Mike's Men, and the other one was BULL, which stands for Boston Unified Leather Legion. Neither one of those made it out. So that's a history of everything. Included in there are some of the governing documents that I had, because if you look at the side, you'll see that there are some that are the pages, some are white and some are yellowed. The yellow ones are part of the original collection that I got from Joe. So you have some of the newsletters, you have some governing documents. So there were things that were in there that were a 3rd and 4th copy that you got. A copy of this history has gone to the Leather Archive as well, and it's also gone to the History Project as well.
Is that a T-Bears patch I see in there?
Yes, it is. It is.
Holy mackerel.
That associate patch banner went to the Leather Archive. That belonged to Mick Miller, who was the founder of ABW. because ABW started in Boston.
Iron Cross.
I can name off everything that is there that Mama Vi is talking about, because she's talking about a banner that was on the wall that had associate patches. So there was a Philadelphians associate patch, Bull, T-Bears, Boston Ducks, Vikings, Iron Cross, Trident, Harbor Masters, NLAI, Enforcers of Rhode Island, American Uniform Association, Leather Knights, New England Bears, Leather and Lace, Boston Riders, Entre Nous, and an event patch, which was Leather Force 2000.
And I will ask Jody Hoinger to send you just a brief, or send me a brief blurb from Leather and Lace.
Oh, I need that because I know nothing about them. Absolutely, please.
Leather and Lace was a women's group founded shortly after LSM. Leather and Lace were formed in Los Angeles by three women, Jamie Jameson, Jody Hoinger, and I never remember the third.
Was this a chapter? Because this was based in Boston.
Boston was a chapter.
Okay.
Or let me rephrase that. Boston was Joan and two members moved.
Okay.
And just took the sisterhood with them.
Okay.
Just like in Oklahoma, Fist, Oklahoma was an offshoot of Fist, Baltimore.
They used to do an event called the Cape Escape, is what they used to do, and it was on the Cape. They also made pins for Leather and Lace, the Boston one, that were actually handmade out of ceramic.
Yeah. Very similar secondary logos. They added leather, and the lace was wonderful and loose, and it was based on the song from the 70s.
Okay.
You give me your leather, take from me my lace.
So it's the Stevie Nicks song. Okay.
Actually,
I wondered about that.
Remember, who did Nicks do it first or second? I'm not sure.
I'd have to look
I know
it up.
she sang it, but I can't remember if she was the first or the second. And that's where the original name came from the song.
Oh, see, I didn't know. Yeah.
And when sisterhood spreads, it spreads, because I don't think by the time this Leather and Lace formed, the T-Birds were as active as they used to be.
Right. T-Birds in Boston started in 85 and ended in 95. Right. In fact, they had a farewell dinner to mark the ending of the club. And Leather and Lace, from what I understand, was late 80s, early 90s, because a lot of the pins that I have are marked from that date.
The Ducks, oh my God, 9+.
Boston Ducks started in 1987. They were originally a chapter of Vulcan Rubber Club out of DC.
Oh man. The jaunts through my kinkling youth. Robbie, why don't you turn that microphone on and say a few things here, because this was your stomping ground for the longest time.
Especially being a former member of Enforcers Rhode Island. You want to talk about Enforcers Rhode Island for us? Robbie?
I know you're there. I can see you. Old Island.
Grace us with your presence, so Robbie won.
All right, Robbie, hide. See if I care. Oh, Scott. Look at all of this. Thank you doesn't begin to express everything that I'm feeling now. Just by way of sentimental explanation, I'm looking at old posters and wandering down amnesia lane.
That right there, what you're looking at is the 1973 history of the Vikings that they published. That's the Longship, that's the newsletter that they have. That was the first one that was from 1969. This is the second anniversary Longship newsletter. There's two of them. There's two Longship, two from 1969 and two from the second anniversary that you got.
Wow.
Yep.
The Constitution of the Vikings.
Yep. If there's anybody out there that's looking to start a leather club and want governing documents in order to figure out how to start a leather club, please contact me. I have governing documents from Entre Nous, Vikings, Dresden, Minotaurs, Bay State Marauders, Harbor Masters. That is a program book from, I believe, their 25th anniversary, which, yep, they ended up, if you look, there's also a pin in the back as well.
Yes. I'm trying not
in
to
its original spot.
and take this slowly and not act like a 3-year-old turned loose in our Hershey factory.
You just saw an ad for Fritz. Fritz was the forerunner of Cathedral Station, which is the Bay State Marauders' new home bar. So if anybody wants to come out to our home bar, fourth Saturday of every month, if you're in Boston, come and visit and hang out with the Bay State Marauders. Right now we're doing things online because of COVID, but that's going to be our new home bar. See Fritz?
Wow. All right, skip straight to the back.
Yep.
And then, of course, the most coveted spot.
That is the Ramrod. That was, the Ramrod first started in, hold on, I have it right here, hold on. Herbie's Ramrod Room started in 1972 at 12 Carver, which is over by the Boston Common. Downstairs was 12 Carver. It was a cabaret. In fact, Phyllis Diller had performed there, and I believe even Judy Garland had performed there. And Herbie's Ramrod Room was upstairs. Herbie's Ramrod Room closed in 1978, and in 1980, it moved over to Boylston Street and was there until it closed in, I believe it was 2019. And it was our home bar. It was where I won Mr. Boston. If you go and you look at the back again and you look at the logo, do you see the logo on there? On the back of?
Beautiful eagle on the
right,
front.
but I'm talking the Ramrod. Pull up the program book with the Ramrod that was there.
Back page.
Back page.
Look at that beautiful logo.
Right, so that is actually Hawk Brooks, who was, he was the one that actually created it. So if you look closely, you'll see a little signature on it that says Hawk. He was the one that created that. He was Mr. New England drummer, I believe, in 1996.
Interesting, they're saying leather and denim rather than leather and Levi.
Right. People change things. One of the things about Entre Nous, if you go and you look at the meeting minutes and governing documents from Entre Nous, they originally start saying that they were a leather Levi club. But by the time I came in contact with them, they said they were a Levi club, but they weren't leather, and that they never were. Well, according to your documents, you were. So at some point in time, how they viewed themselves had changed over time.
And while I understand that denying the past is not the world's best, honor your history, even if you do move on.
Well, it may not necessarily be a denial, but maybe a not knowing.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when new people come in and they're told what the history is, it may not necessarily. The funny thing about history, and if I can kind of say this a little bit about when it comes to our history, very often history is written by the winners. So I'm sitting down and I'm writing all of these things. So when you're getting these histories, you're getting them through my perspective as well, and what I'm reading and the conversations that I have with people. But one person could show up at an event and have a wonderful time, and another person could show up and have a horrible time. Both of them could write a history about it, and it's two different perspectives,
True.
two different ways of looking at it, and both are extremely valid, you know. But the other thing is that not necessarily are we going to get a nastygram on an event, because you don't necessarily want to be, you know, disrespectful to other people, and you want to have a good relationship with them. But as a person that does history talks all the time, I've been part of the community for over 30 years at this point, and having been part of clubs, groups, and organizations on the local, regional, and national level going back over 20 years, I know where some of the dead bodies are buried. And I can't sit in these classes and sit there and tell you the full-on history, because if I do, when it gets back to the people that I talk about, they go, why are you talking crap about me in some sort of class? What are you doing? So when I talk on my history classes, it's very much filtered as well. So sometimes it's difficult to even know the true history at times, because a lot of times when the history comes down, it comes down through being filtered. Very much kind of like what happened with the Vikings and the member that had been murdered. And the only way that I knew about it was talking about it through Entre Nous. There's a filter sometimes. And in one of the Vikings newsletters, the president of the club at that time said, you know, gentlemen, this newsletter is for informational purposes only and not for gossip. So there was probably an edit button when it came to the things that would be in the meeting minutes as to what was actually worthy of putting in the news in the meeting minutes, as opposed to, you know, what they considered to be gossip.
And yet, Scott, when we as those who both experienced it and have become historians about some events and things as well, our job is to record the facts, right, as well as the truth.
Yeah.
And I have a number of young historians who have turned over meeting minutes and their observations that literally can't be opened for, I think the oldest one we have in the library stays sealed until 2060. And it was taped shut when it arrived. We had a Zoom with the young lady who sent it, and double taped and initialed over that. And once a year, I send her a photo to prove that it has not been opened. Yeah. And there are other notes there as well. Kind of like a presidential library. Some yeah. things aren't opened until long after, but they still have to be recorded.
Absolutely.
For the sake of history.
Because it's still part of the history.
Yes.
Yeah. When you're ready, open up another package.
I appreciate and can separate truth from fact.
Yep.
But both have to be part of the story. Robbie is saying he can't hear.
try and sign off and sign back on again.
Meantime, I'm ripping into this last page. Scott, you could teach an awful lot of people how to pack.
Well, this was actually how we would wrap things up at the frame shop that I worked at.
They're good. Okay, we have envelope, and of course, I'm going straight for notebooks.
Okay, so those are program books from the Fetish Fair Flea Market for the last couple of years.
Scott, could you talk just a little about the fetish flea?
Sure.
While I have flashbacks and walks down amnesia lane and
Sure, let me pull up the history here. One moment. And I can go into how detailed do you want, because I can get very detailed.
Once upon a time there was a group called Mila, and they had a wide idea that was both wise and wonderful up their tush to have an event.
Yes.
Which could be the largest fetish fair probably in the country. Along with all sorts of other wonderful things like art shows and.
Yeah, well, let me pull up one moment here. History, here we are.
Oh, good God.
What?
Hold on. I'm holding this up to make anyone who has ever done a word puzzle neurotic.
Oh, that's that's amazing. Amazing. Yeah, they did.
Who do I bless, curse, or blame for this?
I don't know their name, but they were a good sponsor, amazing stores. They were a good sponsor for us. So the New England Leather Alliance actually started in 1991. It started off as a chapter of NLAI, which is National Leather Association. The chapter was known as NLA New England. And in 1993, I believe, let me make sure, I believe it is 1993, is when the Fetish Fair Flea Market started. And we're going to give a shout out to Cecilia Tan. It is 93. Cecilia Tan was the founder of this. She got this idea to do a flea market where she would charge a couple of dollars. I think it was like $2 to get in, if I remember correctly. It was at the Holiday Inn in Somerville. And they made $400 on their first one. Originally, NLA New England didn't want to do this. They wanted to, they didn't think that it would be a good idea. So Cecilia took this on all by herself. And she took a gamble, and I believe the gamble was for $1,200 on her credit card. And they ended up with $400 at the end of it. And they thought it was going to be, it was all the money in the world. By the year 2000, they had left NLAI and had become the New England Leather Alliance. They were now a separate organization, separate from NLAI. And they were doing the Fetish Fair Flea Market twice a year. And then they decided that they would change this, and they started doing weekend long events. Cecilia had come in contact with a woman that was a professional event planner, and she says, hey, I can help you turn this into a weekend long event. We went all over the place. We did classes. We had a fetish ball. There was a Friday night fashion show that happened for a while that was absolutely stunning. There was, and a shout out to Jim if you ever come across this. So there was a ton of things that when we got into a hotel, there wasn't a space available. Eventually, the flea grew to the point of being like 100 vendors, 100 classes, all kinds of discussion groups. It was really a crazy thing, having worked the front door. I don't know if any of you have actually have had $40,000 in cash run through your hands in 3 days, but I have. We always joked that, you know, we could spread it out all in the bed, strip naked and roll in the cash. In fact, Vivian had always talked about, you know, because she would always have the money in her bag. She would always have this bag that said Bob Ellis on it. And she would put the money in the bag and walk out the door. And she goes, you know, I always felt like such a criminal with all of this money. And then she'd walk into the bank with $40,000 in cash, and
And they would,
I always said, you know, Vivian, you can always just tell them that you're a stripper.
or see, the one thing that pops into my head is, could you imagine what you could charge for a 3-minute scene rolling on a bed full of money?
Yes.
That's got to be $1,000 family right there.
But that was just the door in cash. We're not even talking about credit card charges or vendor fees or anything like that. So it was a very lucrative, and Neela had very deep pockets. And as a result, Neela was able to give over $100,000 in charitable giving over its entire 30-year span. So it was a wonderful thing and an absolute honor to be a part of all of that. And it really makes me very sad that it's ended. Because it was such a resource. And I can't tell you the number of times where people would come up and they would say, thank you for all that you have done. If it wasn't for Neela and the Flea, when I came into this community, I don't know if I would have been able to have found a safe space and to be able to get the education that I needed in order to keep myself safe. And it was amazing to have people come back and say that sort of thing. And you got to do things for people. And I'll give you an example. As I said, there was if there was free space, we utilized that. So when we're in the middle of this, there's absolutely no free space to do anything. And we had a man came up to me. I was at the seller's desk, you know, for tickets, and he goes, I know you're really tight for space, but I was wondering if there was a space that I could do a little scene in. I don't really need a whole heck of a lot of space, but I have a girlfriend that is really into interrogation scenes, and I want to do an interrogation scene with her. But at the end of it, I want to propose marriage to her. And I'm like, oh, I got to do this for you, honey. There's no way that we're not doing this. And having been the chair at the time of the organization, I happen to have had the presidential suite on the top floor. So he and his fiance and the other people that were doing the interrogation scene with him went to the presidential suite and did this interrogation scene. And at the end of it, he proposed to her and she said yes, and she broke down and cried. But this is the type of thing that we got to do for people. And it was wonderful while it lasted. And when you're ready, open up the last envelope. Because there's more to come.
Taking it all out at once. Almost. Always one.
So there's pins.
Tell me more.
That is Second City out of Chicago, also known as The Two. They were one of the founding members of AMCC as well.
Centaurs. Jesus. Okay, since we just got a 10-minute warning. Really?
Yes, we talked about that.
Yeah. Okay, this goes definitely upstairs so that I can read it before it ever hits the library.
Yep.
Was I supposed to say that? That was my inside voice. Ignore it.
For those who don't know, this is a book on ravishment.
Yeah. I need
Within the pansexual community is known as ravishment. Gay men simply use the term rape, but it is basically negotiated. And so it is to be taken by force. And the person that wrote the book actually gave it to me at the Fetish Fair flea market when it was in Mansfield, Massachusetts.
read. I got a 10-minute warning. Oh, Bill. Oh, geez. Wow.
What are you looking at here?
Bill.
Oh, yes, yes. That is Hun Comics. It is a digital version of Hun Comics. Hun Comics 1 through 12, Bondage 1 and 2, Jocks 1 and 2, and Gore 1 through 4, all in digital form.
Bill Schmeling,
Yes,
also called the Hun,
yes.
not only was a friend back in the day, but his boy slave partner, Roland Bynum, taught me some pretty powerful lessons about the joys of the wake of your boat and the people you touch that you don't always realize. And as I got to know Bill, and he realized that he knew Jill from other social events when we were running back and forth to the Seattle, Portland area, he did a sketch of what he believed Jill would look like as a man.
Wow.
And it's incredible. He drew her as a pharaoh. And you can see her features while she is holding the double crown of Egypt in her arm. And as a man, is
I think I know that one.
I have the sketch. He was drawing Jill.
I think I know that one. I think that's actually in there, actually.
And he autographed it and sent it to her with a little note about, this is how I see your alter ego. And it's definitely a very special and cherished piece, because there are not that many people who get, while many people have Bill's drawings, very rarely does someone get his, in the true sense of the art world, his cartoon, which is the sketch that is made before the painting is done. We have
the one that I thought it was, it isn't. I just looked it up.
And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he was quite the artist.
Yeah.
I actually have a signed print from him as well that I bought at MAL several years ago in the early 2000s.
And this treasure, young man.
That is a copy of the one and only Ms. Boston Leather Contest that happened in Boston at the Ramrod. It only happened once.
And tell me of your hand in this in the last 3 or 4 minutes we've got left.
I did not have a hand in it at all. In fact, I had never even been to the event. But I knew the people that had been a part of it. So at the back of it, there's a slight history written based on my observations. The unfortunate part is that this planning committee for this didn't get along, and they vowed that they would never do another one ever again. And as a result, they didn't.
Oh, no. Yeah.
One of the clubs that was in Boston that was doing the titles at this time was the Brotherhood, and they wanted to get a sash wife for Mr. Boston. So they approached the women's community to put it on, rather than just going and putting it on themselves. They rightfully knew that if there's going to be a woman's title, that it really should be run by the women's community. And so they did. And the unfortunate thing is that the people who were part of that planning committee didn't get along. But Sarah, who won the contest, she was a wonderful person. She was a great title holder, and I haven't seen her in years, and I hope that someday she reappears, because she was a breath of sunshine. She really was. So you know, unfortunately it was the one and only. But so we've reached the end of
an amazing time. Uh, I'm going to have a nice quiet evening and probably cry a lot, uh, which I almost just lost on camera as I sit and go through and look at the banners and remember some amazing clubs and some wonderful men. And the wonderful man who provided all of this. And I already know where it's going.
Good.
So, that way I can show off everything.
Yes.
Will come to visit.
Yes. So.
Now, to those of you who are only now hearing words of history from Mr. Erickson, he is available for lots and lots of questions.
I am.
Can be reached on Facebook as well as.
You could reach me through the Bay State Marauders website. So you can go to baystatemarauders.org and go info at Bay State Marauders. You will get me. You'll also get the current president. We're going to have a new president soon, so you'll probably get him as well. But you can address it to me. It's an easy way of being able to hunt me down. So that's another way. And I'm more than happy to share any and all information that I have with people, because the only way that anybody's going to be able to learn from any of this is by hearing about it and reading about it. You know, many of these things can be shared through Dropbox. So if you're looking for, you know, some of the newsletters and things like that, they're very fascinating to read. They're, you know, they're a lot of fun to read. So
I have said before, you stand on the shoulders of giants next generation.
Absolutely.
And on very, very strong stepping stones.
I know I do. I know I stand on their shoulders.
And now we have even more that we can show you.
Yes.
Thank you, Scott.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing this with me. I'm glad that we were able to sit down and do this unboxing together. I think that it was a lot of fun.
Yes. And now, until we all meet again, good people, you know how I love to sign off. See you in the library.
In the library.